Greetings from Hopalong Hollow. This is Jerry. In today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about moving roses and moving other plants to different sections of your garden. Take a very brief garden tour. And then we're going to do something a little bit different than usual. I'm going to read to you a story from one of my books. And I'm going to do that because it's a summer story and summer's nearly over. And I really want to share one of my books with you. And that would be Pippity Trimble and the Cunning Grain Stranger. So I'm going to read this book to you after we take our garden walk. So I hope you'll join me today in Hopalong Hollow. Now you may remember also in last week's video I had a row of huge hostas under the little stone wall there in the front yard where the big tree was taken down. And they were always in a shady spot because of the tree. But they started to fry. The leaves were just frying. I had to move all of them, and they were huge. They were really, really huge. So I did move all of them, and when I was able to split them apart, I ended up with 13 big, beautiful hostas. Still pretty good-sized plants, as you can see. I moved all of them into the shady woodland garden over here, off the porch, and over here where we have just a little bit of sun. It's partial sun here. So they're going to grow in here with the hellebores and the lilac bush and whatever else is in here, periwinkle and some ground roses. So this is the long strip with the stone wall. It's got a fence behind it. Last week this was full of hostas. It was full of hostas until we took that big tree down, creating this, turning this into a sunny spot instead of a shady spot, which is poison to hostas, just a death sentence. So I had to move all those. Now, what I always envisioned for this section really was a row of roses, but because it was shady, it wasn't possible until now. So I decided to put in roses, short roses, because I love the stone wall that James and I took so much time gathering these stones. You have no idea the work we went to finding these stones all over the property, way down the hollow, out of the creek. I mean, everywhere. We had to gather stones everywhere. That's when we were younger and we had more energy and strength. We could never do that now. However, we can dig holes and make roses. Now, these were not the roses that I wanted. The roses that I wanted were called the Fairy, and I had them all ready to go. I was going to order them. I needed about 8 to 10 of them to plant 3 feet apart in this section because they can grow up to 3 feet tall and 4 feet wide. So eventually they could all meet each other. But when I went to the checkout, they were $29 for a 2-gallon pot. $29, which just sounds like a pretty good deal. But when I got to the checkout, they wanted $100 for shipping. And I said, no, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I love that rose, but I like this rose too. And it was so much cheaper. This is a very simple, very common pink double knockout rose. Now, they don't have any scent, and some people look down on knockout roses. I don't. These are performers. They will bloom consistently all throughout the season, and they're actually quite beautiful. They grow really nicely in any kind of conditions. I have found them to be a wonderful rose, and I saved a lot of money by purchasing these. It's not as if I'm going to be over here smelling them, because this is just an area that we don't go in very often. It's along the front of the house, and you can see it from the road. But so I think I put in 7. I still need about 2 more. But I think in about a year or 2, I just put them in yesterday, so they're looking a little sad right now. I was able to pick up these roses. They were in 1-gallon containers, but you know, they were just as tall as the ones in the 2-gallon containers. The size of the rose was exactly the same, but the price was $5 difference. So these were $19 a pot. All very, very healthy roses. James dug me a lot of holes. I put our own homemade compost in them, planted the roses, gave them a good drink with fish emulsion, fertilizer. I cut off all the spent blooms. But you know what's interesting about this rose, and I didn't know it until I read it, it says that it is a self-cleaning rose. In other words, you don't have to deadhead this rose. So that was very surprising. I've never heard of a rose you didn't have to deadhead, but I deadheaded them anyway, just to clean them up a bit. So I'd say that by next year, that's always the way gardeners talk, isn't it? Next year, things will be so nice. Next year, things will be so much better. That's the positive thinking of a gardener. So within a year or two, I expect these to grow together and we'll have a beautiful row of lovely little pink blooms all along here, all season long, from spring until October. So we're definitely going to want to fill in some of these blank spots for the times when the roses are bare. And that would be early spring when the bulbs start coming up. There are daffodil bulbs planted in here, but we're going to want to put in maybe some Spanish bluebells or some English bluebells to fill in these empty spaces. This is called Sweet Drift Rose, and this is very similar to what those knockout roses will look like when they come into bloom. I would have been perfectly happy putting this rose down there along the stone wall as well, because I love this rose. It doesn't get more than 30 inches tall, and it's a nice mounding rose. It's really, really lovely, but I couldn't find any online or in the stores for less than $49 for a gallon pot rose, and I'm just not going to pay that. So I went with the knockout roses at $19. In addition to planting all those roses up front, I had a lot of roses that needed to be saved, and that was because of my negligence. Roses that I had put in about 2 years ago and had been doing fine the first year began to be shaded by little trees that grew up around them and bushes and all sorts of things that just overtook the roses. And so I ended up with scrawny looking plants like this. Even though they're climbers, they don't look too good. And, you know, these are David Austin roses, quite expensive, and they should have been doing a lot better than this. But this is my own fault. So, had to move these roses as well. I've done this many times. If your roses aren't doing well in that location, move them to a location where they can be happy. So these roses I dug up, I'm soaking them in some water. They were just in such dry, shady conditions. They just really needed to be saved. They needed to be helped. As you can see, they've got a lot of dead canes. I've got to cut those off. And I may just cut these way, way down. I hate to cut off leaves like this. I just hate to. But it might be better for the plant if I just did that. So we'll see. In the meantime, they'll be soaking for about 2 hours. And then I'll be able to put them in this little garden room that, as you know from the last video, turned into a sun garden, overnight when the tree went away. And I'm trying to find things to fill it with. So we did pretty well here with this little row of phlox and some spirea, but it's still quite barren in here. So I thought, why not move my roses, my sun-loving roses, into this garden and just surround this little place with roses, because we've got some real beauties here. As long as they're healthy, they're going to be just marvelous. I've got a generous gardener, a Gertrude Jekyll, a lady gardener, no, 2 lady gardeners, and yeah, I think that's what I've got right here. And I'm also thinking of moving a Eustacia Vi, which is in another garden where it's really failing. So, yeah, this is going to become a little rose garden, I guess, which is fine with me, because we really need some climbers on that fence, because what's climbing on there now is honeysuckle. And the honeysuckle, I'm trying to keep it under control, because it really does go crazy, and there's absolutely nothing right there in that space. So we are going to have a nice little rose garden here, I hope. So here we are on another day, and you can see how absolutely bright and sunny it is in here now, and why I had to move all those hostas and all those other plants So here we have the roses that I moved. And I actually put in 4 roses in this section. This is a wild rose. It just does its own thing. And I'm just going to consider this my hospital ward for roses because I'm going to see if they recuperate in here. I think they have a ways to go, but I think they'll be all right. I sure don't like that big black stem right there, but it's got a green one coming out of it. Go figure. I'm not a rose expert. This zinnia combination of the vibrant red and the whites and the illumination turned out to be a really pretty coupling. Now the red ones, I don't know the name of them. They were sent to me by a YouTube friend, Brian, thank you. The white ones were simply white zinnias, and these were called illumination. And these come in different shades of a whitish green. Really pretty. Some of them have little pink centers. Such gorgeous zinnias. I just love the variety that you get in the center of a zinnia. Sometimes you get all kinds of other little florets coming up through the center. And sometimes you get sort of like a cone shape, like a cone flower top. There's actually kind of comical. Now look at this one. Isn't that wild? Anyway, I really did not do well in my vegetable slope garden this year. I just pretty much ignored it. That's why you're not seeing it at all with me this year, because all I've got growing are peppers, a lot of herbs, hot peppers, green peppers, and tomatoes, and that's it. And a little bit of butternut squash. So that was a kind of a failure this year, just because I didn't have a chance to do it. This is my lovely dahlia. My lovely dahlia that I sent out seeds, packets of seeds for 20 people. Now I hope you got your seeds, and if you did, I hope you planted them. If not, make sure you plant them next year, because this is what you're going to get. You get several beautiful little colors. Look at that. Isn't that just sweet? This time I even had white ones came in. Didn't even know that we had any white seeds in there. They're peaches, apricots, pinks, and yellows. And they are just, that one's just about had it. I'm going to pull a lot of these off today and just dry them. And I've got so many seed heads on here. If I come in here and deadhead this will just keep on blooming through October. It's a great, great plant. You can have your big showy dahlias. I prefer these delicate ones, really do. My grapevines were destroyed. They were absolutely eaten up by the Japanese beetles. I actually did get some grapes, as you can see here. They're pretty small. This was my first year with these grapes. But the Japanese beetles, I just gave up after a while. They just ate. Look at that. This is what they did to my beautiful grapevines. They started out so stunningly, and then they ended up like this. But we did get a couple little bunches of grapes, not too many. The Japanese beetles wanted the leaves, not the grapes. Got a lot of Kentucky green beans. But I'm not planting Kentucky green beans again because I need stringless beans. I do not want to string beans. Anyway, they're all on their last legs now. Unless I plant another crop, which I don't think I'm going to. And up here, what do we got? A big, beautiful sunflower just about to open. The basil has done just beautifully. This is 3 basil here, and these came out of a little pot of basil we bought from the grocery store. We took the pot, we opened it up, we dumped it out, and we had actually 9 basil plants in that little pot. That's why you don't leave them in that pot. They will not survive. But move them into your garden, and this is what they do. They're marvelous. So I'm letting these go to seed because I'm actually using them to make some bouquets. And I don't really cook with a lot of basil. Now here in the Everlasting Garden, you see the zinnia seeds we just put in about, a month ago? And here they are coming up. We're going to have some great zinnias coming up in here, blooming all the way to October. And these are a little droopy right now. They need some water. But these are statice and straw flowers. So this was the everlasting garden that I pretty much basically started only a month ago here in the potager. Here is the everlasting garden. Now here in the everlasting garden, you see the zinnia seeds we just put in about, what was it, a month ago? And here they are coming up. We're going to have some great zinnias coming up in here, blooming all the way to October. And these are a little droopy right now. They need some water. But these are statice and straw flowers. So this was the everlasting garden that I pretty much basically started only a month ago here in the potager. Another strip of straw flowers. I am with my window view of the everlasting garden in the potager, just to show you. I showed you this view 3 weeks ago when we planted this garden pretty much from seed and young seedlings. But you can see how very much it has filled in with the straw flowers, the statice, the celosia, and there's some gomphrena and gomphrena in here. And they're not blooming yet, but we have a pretty long growing season. So in another month, I hope that I will be able to have a lot of color in here. Now, if you want to see part 2 of this video, for some reason my video movie maker would not allow me to make this a 30-minute video. I don't know why, but it wouldn't. So, if you want to see part 2, in which I'm going to read you one of my books, please move on to the next video. I'll see you over there. Bye-bye.